So hello, and this is the Paris to Palo Alto story. I'm so excited to be here and to share this special relationship with Larry Chu and Medicine X. So I founded Doctors 2.0 NU the same year in 2011, and it's a global conference for all stakeholders in healthcare, where we try to put not only patient innovation, but also the physician from the field and hospitals and all of healthcare, and put their examples in innovation out there for you. I decided to call this year's From Europe to the World, and you will see why progressively that is the case. So from Europe to the world, in case you don't know, that's what Europe would look like at night from space. And I'm going to begin with some numbers before I show you examples from Doctors 2.0 NU. This is our closing scene, which is similar to what you will see today when the volunteers come up on the stage. And the two conferences have a lot in common of really trying to make the individual's voice heard. So I don't know how many of you would realize that Europe is the second largest continent on the internet, with over 500 million users of the internet. That whereas the world penetration rate for use of the internet is 34%, in Europe it's 73%. That 4 of the top 10 internet populations are in Europe, and they would be Russia, Germany, the UK, and France. That 6 of the top 10 languages on the internet are spoken in Europe. So English, Spanish, Portuguese, German, French, and Russian. The second being Chinese. And 6 of the top 10 fastest internet speeds are in Europe, and actually the United States is not very high up on that list, while this area may be quite different. However, Europe is extremely diverse. If you look at food, which is something we all have in common, it's quite different, going from borscht and vodka down to the great Mediterranean diet. And Europe is also very diverse in terms of the internet. The lowest countries have fewer than half the people in the country using the internet, Romania, Greece, and Portugal, and the highest ones, the Netherlands, Sweden, Luxembourg, and Denmark, have nearly everyone using the internet, which is above the United States. And social media also is a great sign of diversity. If you look at the black line, that's the average for Europe, whereas we go from the Netherlands down to Romania with an extremely different rate of use. So it's really, you cannot really speak about a Europe. The same is true for physician social networks, whereas the average may be about only 22% of physicians declaring that they use a social network. There's quite a variation from 7 to 48%, depending on these few countries. And the same is true for hospitals per country having Facebook pages, extreme diversity. So every year when we have to do this European update and choose examples, by definition, we have extremely varied things to show you. So all of these examples are different from the ones I showed last year, and they all have only in common the fact that they are Doctors 2.0 NU conference people. I, of course, am going to start with patients, and we had a tremendous number of people coming forward this year from the area of diabetes. So here you see 3 of them. This is Frederick de Bong from Austria. He had been extremely depressed after the years he had what he called burnout from his diabetes and having to take care of himself, and this led him to create an app called My Sugar, which is doing extremely well. I think he told me recently that they had 60,000 users. It's an app that combines gamification, and he's also contributing to research about the use of these various diabetes tools, saying that 73% of patients do not document what they do, and then that many admit, for more than 50%, to not being truthful. And the research that he's doing with other speakers who have also spoken at the conference, Rosen and Wiesbauer. Yesterday, we took a picture here of some of the people who have participated in Doctors 2.0 NU, and the number of people attending in Palo Alto and Paris is growing every year. So here we see Paul Buchanan from England, and Andrea Limburg from France. And this year each year we choose a cause. So the hashtag, and you heard a lot about hashtags yesterday, FR France Diabetes Online Community, which is in relation to the American one, Diabetes Online Community. They do a tweet chat every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. French time. And here we see an Australian patient, Renza Sibilia, chatting with the British and the French patient on Twitter and asking them if they're all going to a European conference. So you can see how international the tweet chats are becoming. I love these hospital examples. I'm going to start with the University Hospitals of Geneva with Frank Schneider, who is a wonderful speaker in charge of communication at the hospital. And he's been very diligent in providing patient education videos from the hospital in Geneva, and they go also on Facebook and Twitter. And he is possibly one of the very few in Europe, at least that I'm aware of, who analyzes the e-reputation of the hospital. There recently was a tragedy that involved one of the workers at the hospital, and we were able to see the importance of his following e-reputation because there were hundreds of let's say, preoccupying comments that came out after this tragedy, but they didn't find themselves alone, isolated on the web because of all the other materials that there already were. So it's a great preventive thing to follow your e-reputation and to keep feeding all the good things that you're doing so that they compensate for other isolated remarks that may happen. This is the Children's Hospital of Barcelona. It's extremely well known in Europe. And there we have Jorge Juan Gonzalez. I think that they're both listening. I told them about the live stream. Jorge Juan is in charge of e-health at the hospital. And this year, what I wanted to point out was this amazing nurses program. They have a problem that I think many people can identify with, of the difficulty of getting nurses to leave their post to go somewhere else and follow classes. So they put up hundreds of educational videos that are no longer than 5 minutes. And the very diligent nurse who is involved in this program sent in information about it and received a prize this year from Drexel University about her program. Now, there is possibly somebody in the audience who can read this. This says physician community in Russia. So there are two communities that have been speaking at our conference, IVRAC, and another one that we will hear about. IVRAC is very busy with gamification for physicians. Physicians are very competitive. I know you have Septris here at Stanford. They love to play these games and know that they're learning and compare themselves to other colleagues. And then we have Dr. Narabota, Doctor at Work, who spoke yesterday, and they after participating in Doctors 2.0 and you noticed how important mobile apps were. And so they have been developing apps that are very high up in the Russian, I think winning in the Russian Apple Store. These are apps that are recommended by the physicians. And then we have what I also love, the 2.0 Doctor, which is like the title of the conference. I am crazy about what they do. So here's an Irishman named Ronan Cavanaugh, who's a rheumatologist, and he responds to patients with VSnap. He also does very brief videos on VidScript, which is a platform that was launched by somebody else who attended here, John Brownlee. So Ronan Cavanaugh is leading the way with the use of video brief explanations in simple language for patients. And then we have Sylvie Royon-Parola, who is a French psychiatrist who early on became involved in sleep disorder. And she's quite aware, as you would be as well, of the difficulty of wearing a mask for the patients that do need so for sleep dyspnea. So she's created a game with different environments, and not just a game, but also a whole medical program with a sleep record. And this is really very cutting edge, a cutting edge program coming out of France. And then we have Richard Brady from Scotland, part of the NHS, who early on was quite aware of the problems of germs on mobile phones at being a hospital surgeon. So he was working on that. And now he's been working on the fact that you don't have a good match people are out there creating apps, but there's nobody keeping check of which apps for which diseases. And so he has noted that, for example, for esophagus, there's almost nothing in cancer, whereas there are 25 patient apps in pancreatic cancer. So, and he's also been looking at the quality of these apps and a bit dismayed at some of them. So there's a lot of good work coming out about the lack of quality. The government. Usually you don't think of the government as bringing forward innovation. The NHS has been doing some very interesting things in social media and apps. They have this symptom checker, which if you look at the headache question and you go too far with it, they're going to start calling an ambulance for you. It's a very well-used app. If you look on the lower left, you will see that the teenager contraception movie that they've put out on YouTube has over 2 million views, which is incredible. They have an evaluated health apps library, which people are using. There are many tweets each day on the NHS hashtag, and there's the NHS SM account, social media at the NHS, that is driving tweet chats. And they're encouraging engagement at the most senior level, as you can see by these two articles about chief executives being trained in social media and being encouraged to communicate online. So I called this talk from Europe to the world. Obviously, anything that's happening in English, such as what we saw at the NHS, can be picked up in many countries. But I also wanted to point out that there is Games for Health Europe, which is a partner to Games for Health in the United States, and doing very interesting things to foster the use of gamification for healthcare. And General Electric Healthcare out of Spain is running the Get Fit hashtag for the world. They spoke at the conference, and Get Fit has been doing incredibly well. What it is it's wellness and prevention, encouraging people. You're much more likely to follow recommendations about prevention from the people around you than from distant references. And so they're getting more and more individuals to recommend their recipes, their exercise, anything practical. And they have very good results, as you can see, in many countries around the world, including ones with other languages, such as China, Saudi Arabia. And speaking of language, so this little line up there says in Italian, if a quality video were not available in your language, would that be a problem for you? And 70% of Italian doctors said yes, it would be. So this led to an Italian named Roberto Ascione, whom we know well, envisaging the creation of Vidium, which is available to you. It is in beta mode, and there are about 600 videos on there already. It is video with subtitles in all languages. And these are the languages, 80 languages. You probably can't even list 80 languages that you would have heard of. It's volunteers going on and translating into the language, as well as machine translation. And this leads me to a story that links me back to Palo Alto and Larry Chu, because we projected from Vidium at the conference last year, and we discovered a number of months later that a patient in the United States who was watching the tweet flow from our conference heard about this, and she went and watched the video with Sean from Chronology, Sean Ahrens, which had been presented here. And as a result of seeing that video, she, who had been suffering, she was thinking of quitting her job after months of suffering with what she was told was Crohn's disease, and that wasn't going to respond to dietary change. She heard Sean talking about it in the video, changed her diet, and within a couple of weeks, she was feeling fit as new. So we had real goosebumps in telling this Paris to Palo Alto story that we learned about from the last year conference this winter. And speaking of goosebumpy type of stories, there's an amazing story that I'm going to close with from the Barcelona hospital. A 12-year-old patient named Paula, who is in there for a cancer-related problem, said, why couldn't people around the world contribute money to our research to improve cancer? And a famous Spanish singing group called Macaco decided that they would offer a song for this to happen. And I want you to hear this motivating song now.
Los sueños cambiaron el destino de los hombres y de las naciones.
Y sí, seguiremos. Si dicen perdido, yo digo buscando. Si dicen no llegas de puntillas, alcanzamos. Y sí, seguiremos. Si dicen caíste, yo digo me levanto. Si dicen dormidos, mejor soñando. Y entre unos y otros, ahí estás tú. Somos los mismos, somos distintos, pero nos llaman multitud. Perdonen que no me levante cuando digan de frente y al paso. No somos tropas, no somos soldados, mejor gotas sobre olas flotando. Y sí, seguiremos. Si dicen perdido, yo digo buscando. Si dicen no llegas de puntillas, alcanzamos. Y sí, seguiremos. Si dicen caíste, yo digo me levanto. Si dicen dormidos, mejor soñando. Perdonen que no me aclare en medio de este mar enturbiado. Nos hicieron agua transparente, no me ensucien más, yo ya me he manchado. Y es que hay una gran diferencia entre pensar y soñar. Yo soy de los segundos, en cada segundo vuelvo a empezar. Y sí, seguiremos. Si dicen perdido, yo digo buscando. Si dicen no llegas de puntillas, alcanzamos. Y sí, seguiremos. Si dicen caíste, yo digo me levanto. Si dicen dormidos, mejor soñando.
Hoy sabemos que lo importante es soñar, liberar nuestro inconsciente del filtro de censura del pensamiento. Creemos que al soñar perdemos un tercio de nuestra vida y nos equivocamos.
Y sí, seguiremos. Si dicen perdido, yo digo buscando. Si dicen no llegas de puntillas, alcanzamos. Y sí, seguiremos. Si dicen caíste, yo digo me levanto. Si dicen dormidos, mejor soñando. Si dicen caíste, yo digo me levanto. Si dicen dormidos, mejor soñando.
Hoy sabemos que lo importante es soñar.
It is called Seguiremos. Seguiremos means we will follow. Thank you very much, and I'm going to leave you.